Today we'll be working in my workbook called The Chronological Study of the End Times, and this is part one, which is Rapture to Midpoint of Tribulation. Looking at the table of contents, we have already talked about rapture and then relating it to the first part of the chapter 4 of Revelations. Chapter 1 through 3 is the churches, and that is the church age, which we are in now. But after that um, becomes rapture, which we don't know what time that is at all. And but that, in our belief, Calvary Chapel belief, is that it happens first. And then it relates quite well with John going up in heaven in the first part of chapter 4 of Revelations. Now, once there's rapture, we know that there's an event afterwards called the tribulation. But does it happen right away? Does it happen 5 years, 7 years down the road? There is no connection between the two other than we know it follows it. So I have some events that I figure have to get started before the tribulation starts. Now, we know the tribulation starts when the Antichrist makes a peace treaty between Israel and her enemies. And so how much time frame there is between the two is the question. Uh, these things that I'm going to be working on now in chapter 2 here are the things that need to be kind of in place or happen before um, the tribulation. Now, they may have occurred or got started before rapture. They may even be finished before rapture, but I know these have to be at least started before tribulation starts. So we'll go now today to the League of 10 Nations. Well, we'll take a little summary here first. This is between rapture and tribulation. Many people just assume that the 7 years of tribulation starts right after rapture, but that is not true. The tribulation clock starts with a particular event, the signing of the peace treaty, but many other things have to happen in order for that event to occur. How long a time between rapture and the start of tribulation is unclear. However, it would seem to be at least 3 to 4 years, based on the length of time Israel will be able to burn the war residue from the Gog and Magog war, which we haven't talked about yet. Since many of these interim events that have to happen before the start of tribulation are described in several books of the Old Testament, we can't be sure of the precise order these all occur. We just know that they will occur. They may not be separate, unique events. They could easily overlap each other. So, in this chapter, we have the League of 10 Nations, which we'll be doing today. Sometime after rapture, there'll be a rise of 10 kings or nations that will rule the world. This will not be a very united league, as there will be fighting and bickering between each other. And then we have Babylon being built. There will be a need for a city that will be the central location of the government too. And so Babylon will be rebuilt. We'll talk more about that. I know a lot of people think Babylon is New York or Rome or whatever. I want to talk more about that when we talk about Babylon. And then, of course, the Gog and Magog War, which I have many chapters on. Russia and its allies, thinking Israel is vulnerable, will attempt to attack her with dire consequences. And then last, the establishment of the one world religion. As I say, these are not necessarily in order. They can be interchangeable and they can be happening together. With the absence of Christians and the reduction of Muslims, the Gog and Magog War, from the Gog and Magog War, there'll be a desire for religious world peace, unifying all faiths into one. So then the time frame for this, as I mentioned, all these events have to happen before the signing of the peace treaty with Israel, but after rapture. Why? The chaos after rapture will have every country scrambling to either protect their land from invaders or invade to get more land. Through this 10 kingdoms rise, which gives rise to the Antichrist. Through this 10 kingdoms rise, which gives rise to the Antichrist. The 10 kingdoms need a United Nations, and New York is no longer strategic in location. Therefore, Babylon is built. That is my theory. We'll talk about that when we get to Babylon. The result of the Gog and Magog war is a reduction of Israel's enemies, which will allow her to obtain a peace treaty and the ability to build her temple. Lastly, the consolation of faith into one world faith is needed near early as the persecution of the tribulation saints start to happen very early in the 7-year period. So that's the time frame. And we're today going to work on the League of 10 Nations. And again, on our little timeline graph, raptures happen, which matches John being called up to heaven. We are past the church age, which corresponds to the 7 letters to the 7 churches. And we're now in the League of 10 Nations, which should happen before anything else happens, or, in the time frame. Here's the scripture. And so it's in Daniel 2, 41, 43. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay. So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And then Daniel 7, 7, 8. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking into pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and had 10 horns. In Daniel 7, 23, 24. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it into pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom. And Revelation 17, 12 to 13. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as the kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. Okay, so those are, Daniel is the scripture of the 10 nations, and these are the ones that I figure are related to it. This League of 10 kings, nations, is symbolically described as what? Feet and toes. What does the iron and clay description mean? That they won't get along well together, because iron cannot mix with clay. How do we know that Daniel 2, 41, 43 is talking about 10 of something? Because it's 10 toes. What words give us the impression that this League of Kings or nations will not be nice to the people they rule? Let's see. Let's see. Probably in the middle. Dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong, devouring, trampling the residue or the people with their feet. What is the fourth beast? Fourth kingdom on earth, which is different from all the other kingdoms because it has 10 kings. 10 horns represent 10 kings. According to Revelations, who will they rule with? The Antichrist. Who will they give power and authority to? The Antichrist or the beast, basically the beast. We'll talk about the difference between Antichrist and beast. They're the same person, but they're also different when we talk about the Antichrist. Who are the 10 nations? If the 10 nations come out of the old Roman Empire, as it seems to indicate with the phrase iron mixed with clay, they would probably be from this area shown to the left. Looking at the map today, we have the countries of Spain, France, Italy, England, Eastern Europe, Greece, Turkey, Syria, Israel, Egypt, and the countries of North Africa that occupy the same locations as the Roman Empire. One other factor that you would have to consider is that these countries with the least amount of Christians would have remained the most intact after rapture and therefore be the quickest to regain power. At present, the worst place to be a Christian in or near this area is in Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and Egypt. What does Daniel mean by the fourth beast with 10 horns? Bible scholars generally agree that the four beasts are the four kingdoms that ruled over Israel: Babylon, Mede, Persia, Greek, and the Roman Empire. Uh, Daniel 7:23-24 explains that 10 horns is the 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom. This is another way of explaining that the League of 10 Nations comes out of the Roman Empire. If Daniel predicts about the League of 10 Nations, why did they not show up immediately after the Roman Empire fell, just like all the other beasts prior came one right after the other? Because the kingdom of Israel fell and all these beasts rule over Israel. Therefore, the rise of the League of 10 Nations has to wait until Israel became a nation today again. So now that Israel's a nation, it rules itself right now. But there will be a time when its rulership will be governed by someone else. And that's part of the League of 10 Nations. What nations do you think will make up the League of 10 Nations and why? I think it does have to do with the Roman Empire. So all those nations in the Roman Empire. And then, but also concentrating on those that don't lose as many people during rapture. This area is not the whole world, yet the prophecy suggests that they rule the whole world. What happened to the other countries of the world? For example, the United States, Philippines, Australia, China. I think they're too distant to commerce or to central location that they don't make an effect. I mean, if all planes are down, we have a hard time getting over to Europe, for instance. That's my thought. So that's the end of the League of Nations. It was a short little chapter, but I hope you got something out of it. Talk to you later.